I said this on Friday, I'm going to keep saying it. My new role here is to give Democrats advice because we get the most viewers. Dems have to let go of what's killing them, which is obviously the remaining wokeness.
You can't spell felon without Elon.
Trump and Musk like to say, we're reading out fraud, waste, and abuse. We're looking at efficiency. That's a dog whistle.
Elon Musk ripped up the Constitution and our system of checks and balances. The Trump administration and unelected billionaire Elon Musk have led a reckless and illegal attack on USAID.
9 million veterans are watching you give them the middle finger. And we're not going to stand for it.
So watching the Dems react to Doge is like watching a mobster plead with the cops who ignore the kicking noises coming from inside the trunk of his car. Off the coast of Chile, a kayaker was caught on camera being swallowed by a humpback whale, prompting Joey Behar to say, "I was nowhere near Chile."
This time, Greg Gutfeld took his vehement criticism of woke liberals, particularly those on The View, and Jessica Tarlov and Ilhan Omar to a whole new level.
According to a new poll, Joe Biden is the least popular living president. His supporters dispute that, saying he's dead. Meanwhile, a former Democrat donor claims Joe Biden was put on drugs before campaign events.
And this is just the beginning. Don't miss Greg Gutfeld's frank refutation of awakened liberals' assertions that Donald Trump is to blame for the emergence of Trump derangement syndrome as he squares up against them. They are unaware of how much TDS says.
Says she's seeing an increase in Democrat patients expressing a, quote, sense of burnout, guilt, and despair, which you're used to, at losing an old way of life since Trump has been elected. They credit or they blame the administration's chaos due to all the executive orders and Doge actions. To the point then, which is that shouldn't the therapist be telling the person, Tyrus, that it's not the Trump administration that is doing this, it is your reaction to it. It is like the way you deal when things aren't going your way is driving you crazy. Trump's not the cause, it's all the that you've been told.
You know what? Yes, good point.
They are always the first to blame, but this time they went directly to the airport to further their anti-G agenda, which is increasingly getting more pronounced every day.
To show that you give a damn, that you got a little emotion about the fact that people are losing their jobs indiscriminately. Just like to see somebody wake the hell up and get excited about the fact that your country is under assault. They're not at the gate anymore. They're in your bedrooms. They're in your living rooms. They're in your businesses. They got your data, dumb. They got all your stuff. Elon Musk has his tentacles in everything you're doing, and nobody seems to give a damn. So that's all I want somebody to show that they care enough to get out there.
I'm constantly amazed at how the left turns every Republican initiative into a disaster for those who are concerned. Even if Elon Musk pointed out that persons involved in these conflicts will continue to receive benefits for 8 months. It serves as a stark reminder that job losses, both here and internationally, are nothing new.
Farm workers got shelved,
Yes.
no one cried, they said, learn to code.
Learn to code.
Or all those guys that were working for the U.S. military were fired for not getting vaccinated. Or all the black Americans who lost their jobs to migrants. No one cared. But some people got an 8-month buyout, a severance package with full benefits.
Thank you for speaking up, Jesse. If you're paying attention, it's obvious that the woke media is purposefully ignoring the true problem, where the money is going, in favor of a fixation on the protests.
I did. The interesting thing about Fort Knox is that the K is silent. Did you know that? K-N-O-X. And K stands for Krugerrands, which suggests that perhaps there's less gold in Fort Knox than you think. You know, Fort Knox is evil. In 1933, Jesse, a few years before you were born, FDR declared private ownership of gold to be illegal and then took it under the threat of imprisonment. That was our gold. We didn't steal it from the Indians the way it was supposed to be. They were stolen from us. And then a year later, he doubled the price of the gold. And since then, it has been audited since 1953, 148 million troy ounces of gold, and we don't know if it's actually there. What if it's not there at all? Oh my God. I know. What if it's, I don't know, what if Dr. Phil has it? I have no idea. Poor Michael Steele. If he doesn't do that every day, he doesn't have a job. He's the guy you go to for the exploding head move. He's like that stress ball. You know the stress ball you squeeze and the little things pop out of the ears? And he has to do that every day because he used to be the former RNC chair 14 years ago, and he became the former RNC chair back then, and he's been milking that ever since. It's not relevant. It's as relevant as saying Ted Bundy was a Boy Scout. He was, believe it or not. I even did research on that. What's hilarious about the protests, and then I'll shut up, although people want me to keep talking, those protests are the same exact game plan that is used by USAID in other countries, which is to undermine foreign countries or the sitting governments in those countries by creating discontent. You know they're funding it because the people shouting the loudest are the ones who are on the payroll. The protest really is no different than a guy screaming at a cop because he wants to look through the back of his car because he can smell.
As he pointed out, the loudest protesters frequently have underlying financial concerns, but progressives completely refuse to admit it. They are not just missing the point, they're actively ignoring it, just like Jessica Tarlov. It's amazing how these woke demonstrators interpret reality when, in reality, what's being done is saving them a significant amount of money. Greg handles these situations expertly, and it's truly amazing that no other media outlets are addressing the issue the way he does.
About elected officials from the Democratic Party, he wasn't yelling about rank and file Democrats. He was basically saying to the party infrastructure, you're doing this all wrong. Like, having rallies in Washington, D.C. is not getting a message out about what the real implications of these cuts are. And yeah, whatever Jesse says, I mean, maybe we'll find out next week that it's, as true as the condoms to Gaza, but there's real stuff in sports. Oh, cool.
I did.
Okay, so he made that up. Don't bother fact checking it. It was made up. You need to talk about the 3,400 people from the fire service that were fired. For instance, Donald Trump was out in California talking about how we need more people working on this, that you need to be raking the leaves. Then we're firing people. 57% of the land in California is run by the federal government. So you need to do that. Firing these disease detectives when we have measles outbreaks. You could talk about that. Go out to your home constituents and talk about that. The nuclear weapons workers that were fired and then they had to get rehired because that was a mistake. Or even on a day like today, and I understand that the plane flipped over in Canada, that they're firing air traffic controllers and they're showing no cause, not based on performance or conduct for doing that. They did it Friday night on Valentine's Day at 7 p.m. So you talk about
Valentine's Day,
the best day of the year. No, but those are...
It seems like your major point was cut off at the end. Would you like me to continue or change it for clarity? If so, kindly let me know.
If Joe had done that, it would have been in a hearse, and the blinker would still be on. Of course, if it was Kamala, they'd stop for a roadie. Trump has essentially destroyed the Democratic Party, but before that, he also destroyed the Republican Party. So all the Dems are experiencing is what we already went through. You just need to admit that. Sometimes I just want to shake the remaining sane Democrats and say, what are you? Because right now, for the last 8 years, you were anti-Trump, and that's not doing any good. You've indulged the whims of deranged activists for 8 years. That didn't work. And your whole hoax matrix has imploded. Look at how quickly the Pete Hegseth hoax just imploded. He's drinking at the podium. That thing was gone before it had any traction. So I said this on Friday. I'm going to keep saying it. My new role here is to give Democrats advice because we get the most viewers. Rather than trashing them, I'm going to help them because that's the kind of person I am.
Really are so nice.
First of all, the Dems have to let go of what's killing them, which is obviously the remaining wokeness. And I go back to my zombie analogy. In every zombie movie, the hero struggles against becoming a zombie when in fact, if he just lets the zombie bite him, it's over with. The zombies leave you alone, and you can work your way up the zombie ranks, become a zombie bureaucrat, get a good zombie consulting fee. That's what the Dems did with the woke virus. They let themselves get bit rather than resist. That only works if all of America complied, but they didn't. So now you got to unbite yourself. Now, in order to do that, and this is Jessica can.
As this so-called awakening begins to unravel, the left are more focused on defending their narrative and facing the billions of taxpayer dollars that were taken from Americans and sent to Gaza. They still haven't learned a thing. It seems like your main point got a little lost towards the end. If you want me to help you clarify or finish the thought for you, just say the word watch,